my my job as an executive coach is to work with successful people, but successful in terms of society. So remember, according that first half of the life, you get the money, the status, the title. Everybody else is saying this is what success is, and you realize, oh my God, I'm not happy. I am unfulfilled. There's a part in you that feels terribly wrong, no matter how much money, how many cars, how many square meters of a house you have. This is where Carl Jung comes in. In coaching, asking questions that lead the client, the coachee, into those difficult areas that they have been shoving under the rug, if you will, for many years. A lot of traumas, big mistakes, some shame from a young age, the influence of bullying, the influence of all sorts of like eating disorders that they had when they were younger, and all of that just gets shoved under the rug, and they present this persona, this shiny person, and we see it a lot today in social media. But underneath that, there's no strong foundation.
So, my friend, it's been a while. How has life treated you since we last spoke?
Very well.
Yeah.
A lot of good things happening, yes.
Please elaborate.
Well, some traveling. First time I go to India, that was quite an interesting trip. Mumbai. I went to Mumbai.
Yeah.
Somebody told me my senses would be assaulted, all my senses, and he was right. That place is very intense. So that was nice. I spent a weekend there speaking at a safety conference, and a few other events, book signing, and a lot of exciting things.
But that's amazing. So your career shift has really taken off now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you can say that. I'm very comfortable and very grounded in my role as coach and speaker. I feel very comfortable with my new feeling of an author, right? A published author that always feels it's a different identity. So I'm getting very used to that.
Yeah, that's nice. So and how would you say that this new identity interfere with your old shadow?
You've done your homework.
Okay, so I'm going to bring the listeners. I'm going to bring the listeners into this right now. We are going to talk to talk about Carl Jung today, and Carl Jung was, in short, a Swiss psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, and a thinker who basically profoundly kind of shaped psychology, philosophy, and even maybe art and religion. Now, initially, he was a close collaborator of Sigmund Freud. He later broke away due to theoretical differences and kind of developed his own school of thought, which is analytic psychology. Now, I'm not going to say that much more, but he's also referred to a lot in the coaching community, and this kind of plays into your hand. So if this was
Yes.
a game of poker, you'd look to your cards right now and think, well, I'm going to win this one.
You set me up nicely.
I'm trying. Yeah. So
Yes.
Dr. Hatim, please bring us a little bit into the world of Carl Jung and how you can utilize his thoughts and ideas in your line of work.
Carl Gustav Jung is, I would say, the father of modern psychology. Way more influential to today than Sigmund Freud, who was his tutor, if you will, or he grew, as you said very accurately. He started by being his disciple, and then he broke away from Freud. The I'd say the one important thing here is one of the main reasons that he broke away from Freud is that Freud developed a framework and sealed himself and the whole community of psychology around that framework. And anything that was new or innovative outside of that framework was shunned out. And that was problematic for Carl Jung, because he was constantly evolving and questioning and wanting to progress psychology, which he eventually did, but he had to step away. Um, so he created his own school, and one major difference between Freud and Carl Jung is that Freud was very much Cartesian, very much objective measurement, research methodology. Everything had to be measurable, recorded. It was scientific. He didn't want to step away too much from the research methodology approach. Carl Jung, on the other hand, believed in this additional dimension of psychology, which is the spiritual side.
Mm.
So he was deep into dream analysis. He was deep into archetypes and myths and legends from the previous traditions and civilizations, and believed a very different concept, which is the collective consciousness, which Freud did not embrace at all. This idea that we as human, we all have a collective consciousness that is united through these archetypes, that these stories that you hear about, the myths and the legends from the Greeks, from the Persians, from the Incas and the Mayas. All these archetypes are all kind of they all have their own place in the collective consciousness of humans, regardless of your ethnicity, and they all carry a general message that impacts our everyday life. So that's in terms of the departure between Freud and Carl Jung. And Freud was deeply hurt. He considered Carl Jung like his son, but it was a very severe break. And Carl Jung continued on his own. Um,
Would
one
you
thing
think?
that, yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
would you think that when he starts, embracing the dreams and the collective consciousness, this might have been the start for him developing the theories of the person you want to present versus the shadow you kind of want to hide, and how these two are in constant, not conflict. Conflict is wrong, but I'm going to play the ball to you. But you think that these ideas are interlinked somehow?
Yes, they are. The collective consciousness is an important part of what he calls individuation.
Hmm.
Individuation is another word for self-realization. So he believed that after half a life, let's say 35, 40 years, you get to a place where you you potentially rebel against benchmarks and values that come from outside, and you start developing your own benchmarks and your own values, the own meaning of your life. Your own life purpose becomes defined by you. If you succeed in this, then you have gone through what he calls individuation, which is you separate yourself from the overall dictates and values of society, family, and you develop your own trajectory in life, if you will. And he believes that in order to reach individuations, all of these elements that you mentioned, the persona, the shadow, accepting the anima and the animus. The anima is
Hmm.
the female energy. The animus is the male energy inside of you. Recognizing both, looking at the shadow, understanding what the shadow is, which is all those parts of you that you do not like.
Yeah.
Anything that you are ashamed of yourself, or that you hiding, you put under the rug. All of those, if you through a lot of hard work start looking at all of those and integrating them is his word, integrating them into your identity and personality, then you reach individuation and self-realization. Only then can you then start becoming a true force of nature and of society, if you will. You start developing your own life meaning, your own life purpose, your own values, and you start acting at a much higher level. You can say maybe higher consciousness, but really it's an integration, a psychological integration where every part of you is accepted exactly as it is, and you realize that nobody's perfect. Everybody is has flaws and genius, and we have to accept them both and integrate them.
That kind of reminds me. Kind of, can we say that this is the point where we start? We have a conscious side, we have a subconscious side, we have a personality we want people to see, we have other parts of the personality we don't want people to see, and if people are disagreeing with me right now, there are things about ourselves we don't want other people to know about, and these things we will try to hide, and when we try to hide them, it will affect our behavior. And
Yes.
I read a lot of negotiations specialists that uses this tactic when they negotiate deals, because they will try to find the parts of you that you want to hide, and they'll try to pinch them, kick them to provoke reactions, because it will get out the sides they don't like. But we should maybe not go down that rabbit hole right now. I was thinking, when it comes to coaching, let's bring it into something tangible for the listeners. This has to be really important when you coach people, making them realize that they have to play on every part of their personality. If not, something's going to be suppressed, and it's going to have some consequences somewhere. Can you walk us
Yes.
a little bit into that landscape?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for that
yeah.
invitation. um, Absolutely. In order, so my job as an executive coach is to work with successful people, but successful in terms of society. So remember, according that first half of the life, you get the money, the status, the title. Everybody else is saying this is what success is, and you realize, oh my God, I'm not happy. I am unfulfilled. There's a part in you that feels terribly wrong, no matter how much money, how many cars, how many square meters of a house you have. This is where Carl Jung comes in.
Mm.
This is where, in coaching, you start asking questions that lead the client, the coachee, into those difficult areas that they have been shoving under the rug, if you will, for many years. A lot of traumas, big mistakes, some shame from a young age, the influence of bullying, the influence of all sorts of like eating disorders that they had when they were younger, and all of that just gets shoved under the rug, and they present this persona, this shiny person, and we see it a lot today in social media. But underneath that, there's no strong foundation. Carl Jung shows us, and good coaches use this a lot, that in order to recover that foundation and rebuild that foundation, you need to lead your coachee into the dark corners of their mind, of their subconscious mind, and shine a light on the shadow. When the person finally, after a lot of work, like collaborative work, the person starts to see their shadow and understand that they have it and they've been hiding it and resisting it. Oftentimes they start crying. They just freeze sometimes, or they deny, and then they get back into it. You're getting into something very, very productive there, because if you then guide them through how that shadow is actually energy that is unused and that is actually slowing them down. And they realize what caused that part of them to go under the radar, and they face it, and they start accepting that and integrating it into themselves. You see a whole new person blossom. All that energy that has been pent up, if you will, starts becoming directed towards what they do best, which is their shiny parts. And now their
Love it.
foundation is solid because they cannot be played with by a savvy negotiator, like you said. A typical example, when you mentioned that about the negotiators, actually a perfect example is in the movie A Few Good Men. When Tom Cruise, who was defending a soldier who has broken the law, was questioning this 4-star general, and Jack Nicholson, yeah, and he played into those beliefs and the shadows that Jack Nicholson had. He understood how to get there. He asked all the questions that the buttons of Jack Nicholson until he got Jack Nicholson to say the thing that made his client innocent. And Jack Nicholson figured out he messed up because he was played. That's exactly what you can do if you realize somebody's shadow and you use it as in this case, in a negative way, right? In a way that is manipulative. But we coaches and also psychologists and therapists, we use that for the benefit of the coachee. We get them to realize it, to adopt it, and to embrace it. And eventually, in my opinion, every coach, depending on the phase that their client is, should be looking into the process of individuation that Carl Jung explains very well, and at least see where their clients are or are not in that phase, and guide them with the concepts of Carl Jung. He tells us how to do it, and this is fantastic. This is why he is so influential on coaches.
Yeah, and to play into that, just to hammer that bolt a little more because I can. I heard someone say that when we instantly like someone or instantly dislike someone, it is usually connected to the well, if you instantly dislike someone, it's usually because that person triggers something on the shadow side immediately,
Yes.
which is usually unconscious for ourselves, but they do something. Yeah, this must be a really important lesson for leaders, understanding that
Yeah.
okay,
Not
the
just
the
leaders,
person
not
I
just leader
don't.
Arvid, everyone,
Yeah, yeah,
including leaders. Yes,
yeah.
including leaders, which is important for our audience here. But I'd say everyone
Mm,
should pay attention and become aware when somebody triggers them. That is a signal that you need to look into that which triggered you
you
is
need to look into
directly
yourself.
resonating with your shadow.
Yeah.
You are triggered by this person because it gets you too close to your shadow, and you don't want to admit that you have it because subconsciously you're putting the shadow under the rug. So you get upset, you get triggered, you get angry, your voice elevates, and you're like, oh, what an idiot this person is, or this or that or the other. In reality, anytime I'm coaching someone and something triggers, that's the avenue right there.
That's a gold mine.
That's telling me this is the shadow. And then
Yeah.
I use that to question that more. Why does it bother you? Right. And, what are the things that it does? What are the emotions that it causes inside of you? What could have been the cause of this? Slowly, over multiple sessions. Because every time you bring it up and they sleep on it, the subconscious kind of wakes it up a little bit. And then the next session, you dig a little bit more, until at some point, okay, we got it. The person realizes that it's them, not the other person. And every person who triggers you is a gift for you to look inside. And the Carl Jung uses the the concept of projection. Projection is when you project onto the person that you are dealing with those things that you either want them to be or if they're not, if they're you're not your friend, or they trigger you, you project onto them that shadow that is actually from you, and you say, oh, this person is doesn't know how to deal with me, or doesn't respect me, or is against my beliefs. So you start projecting onto them. In reality, you haven't sorted that on the inside. Same thing when you said you see someone that you love instantly or like instantly, you projected onto them those ideals that you want in a person. They come close to it and you make it even more, so you're projecting. This projection is key, because it can become a problem if you're parenting and you project all your pent up needs onto your children, and you start getting upset with them when they do something. In reality, that's something that you're ashamed of in yourself, and when they're doing it, those children are a gift for you to say, oh my God, I got upset with my son, and after the fact, and like, I shouldn't have, but why did I get upset? Bingo. If you start asking, what is it in what they said that triggered me, and you start pulling that string, you'll start learning a lot about yourself, if you have that courage and that wisdom, or if you're guided by a therapist or a coach in your quest.
In a coaching sense, or the coaching world, I also heard someone say something about Jung, and this was in a podcast, and was talking about Jung and his um, the idea of making yourself available all the time, and how that could be really negative for people's perception of you, because by being the person that's always available, always willing to step up, always willing to help out, it becomes an expectation. And over time, it's just that you're not getting credit for it or nothing, and you create an imbalance in your personal relationships with
Yes.
people. Is this something you are familiar with in his
Yes,
research, or
absolutely.
yeah, yeah?
Absolutely. This is not always a shadow. This is sometimes a conditioning or learned behavior from parents, or it's a value that comes
It's a
from parents.
virtue.
Like,
Yeah.
it's a virtue. It's similar to, for example, a value of money is evil, or your parents tell you, no, you should not be rich, or because rich people are evil. When you are taught these things at an early age, you continue. It's hard. They go unconscious, subconscious in your mind. And also, we as coaches need to understand what is it that caused that behavior, because everybody knows that behavior, including themselves, know that behavior is not really helpful or conducive to success. And we find out the root cause of where they got that. So again, we shine the light on it and say, this is likely, possibly, the reason why you behave this way. So we go back as far back as we can through questions and memories, remembering childhood, usually between age 7 and 14 are where all of these conditionings and learnings happen. And that's how we go back, and then they change because they
Mm.
realize, oh my gosh, this used to protect me when I was 14, but now it's hindering me. And I'm grateful that it protected me, but now I need to acknowledge that it's no longer useful. And when they do this deep work, not just thinking about it, but actually feeling it, and emotions is everything, is the gateway to transformation. When they feel something deeply and they say, that's it, no more, not a minute more, that's when you realize they have made the shift. And it's not just a mental, oh, I should lose weight, or oh, I should not be a pushover, or oh, I always help people too much, I should take care of myself. When it's just mental, it doesn't really get you anywhere, because it's a built-in habit. You need to dig deep into the habits, the nervous system that gets you to respond this way. And that's where the coach's work is really. The true good coaching, in my opinion, is in my search,
Mhm.
my own quest, is transformational coaching. Is when a person's identity is fully understood, and the person chooses what to improve in that identity. That's coaching.
Because I've heard this said in quite a simple sentence once. If you help someone in their time of need, the only thing you can be certain of is that they will be back the next time their time of need arises. That's the only thing that's that's certain with it. And if you are the person that always keeps helping people, helping out, being the nice person, the better person, at the end of the day, people will seek you out only when they do have problem. Is that accurate? I
It
think
is.
it
It
is.
is. It
I
is
feel it
because
is. Yeah.
yeah, we are animals. We are animals of habit. We are creatures of
Yeah.
habit. And when people get used to you doing something always, they expect that of you.
Mm.
And so we're training each other.
Mm.
Literally, I'm training that person by saying, whenever you come to me, I'm available. And the other person is trained that whenever I have the need, I go to this person. And that becomes a codependency. That's a term that you may hear sometimes, and it
Mm.
happens in marriages sometimes, or in siblings, or and it's not conducive to any that of the things that I talked about, and no individuation, no self-realization, because you continue to live with like an agreement, right? When I
Mm.
need help, I come to you, and when you need my help, I'm always here for you. They serve certain psychological needs, both of them, and they're in a nice balance that is sustainable but not good for growth or development.
No, no, but that is interesting. I also heard something to. I think we can speak about Carl Jung forever and ever, but we got to try
He
to keep it
is
around
he's an
the half an
ocean. He's an
hour.
ocean.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
everybody knows, the Myers-Briggs test is directly from the work of Carl Jung. So the introvert, extrovert, the sensing, the feeling, the all of those 16 personalities are all derived from one book that he wrote called Eight Personality Types, Psychological Types, in 1921. They got that work was taken by Myers and Briggs, and they created the Myers-Briggs test. But it's entirely from Carl Jung's work. So if you
That
ever
was
taken the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs test for personality, you are essentially applying exact framework that Carl Jung created 104 years ago.
that was supposed to be my next question. The introvert versus extrovert. Yeah, because well, at the end of the day, that has to be quite important, because this is no matter who listens to this podcast, everyone has heard the term extrovert or introvert, and I'm gonna make an assumption, which is probably stupid, make an ass of me and all those things. But at the end of the day, I think everyone have a tendency to read a little bit about extrovert versus introverts and kind of categorize themselves into one of them. So literally, Carl Jung is handing down his legacy and shaking hand with everyone and telling them that you are this or that type. Can you give a little, I don't know, a summary of what
Yes,
introvert or extrovert is, just to
yes,
help people along?
yes.
Yeah.
I would like to start by expressing that it's not one or the other. Everything, all four dimensions, like I am ENFJ in the Myers-Briggs, right? So I'm extrovert. However, when you dig deep into the results of the MBTI test, of the Myers-Briggs test, you read percentages. I am 60% extrovert and 40% introvert. Okay. But people don't like these nuances. So they just say, oh, I'm an extrovert. I'm an introvert. And then it starts becoming their identity and they act that way. But if they only looked at the results of the test in their all nuanced, all four dimensions have a spectrum, right? And you only get E instead of I if you're more than 50%. It's simple as that. So if you're 55% extrovert and 45% introvert, then you're labeled as E, extrovert. And yet almost half of that energy of communication with others is introvert. And you will see this. You need your time alone. You need quiet. You love to read by yourself, things like that you cannot be around people all the time, even though you're an extrovert. Then you need your quiet time. You need your me time. And people just forget about that and just go with the label. So I just want to make sure everybody, at least if we learn this from this podcast, that when you take the Myers-Briggs, pay attention to the results and start looking into that nice nuance of where you are on the spectrum of all four dimensions,
Mm.
which lead to the eight types that Carl Jung was talking about. So now you asked me the question about shed some light about introvert and extrovert. Uh, Again, it's a tendency of your psyche and of your expression of self, of life, when it comes to your relationship with people. It's an expression of an energy of being attracted and wanting to share and express to people versus being more in turned towards the inside, if you will, and still very creative, very good leader. But when it comes to that interaction with others, you're not as forward, you're not as um, comfortable or as open, and you don't talk as much. And we, unfortunately, I say we, the Western world. I lived 2/3 of my life in the U.S., and the Western world has glamorized through Hollywood and many other avenues of mass media that extrovert is better, but it's not. And now you're starting to see a lot of research about how introverts make great leaders, how introverts are more creative, how it's because the individualism of the Western society of the U.S. and the hero, the concept of hero, shining light, which now turned into social media and showing up, and it makes the extrovert like it gives them an easier job, if you will, because they can put their face in front of the camera and talk about their day or talk about their pet or things like that. So it's the demands of society and the benchmarks posed by society, Western society, that make it easier for extroverts or the ones that have 50% or more extrovert to express themselves, to impress, to convince, to shine, if you will. But it is not like that.
No,
Extroverts and introverts have equal chances and equal skills of succeeding in any of these areas. They just have to accept themselves as they are and figure out how to turn that energy into the results that they need in their job or in their career or position. And that's what we do in coaches is we as coaches is we help people understand themselves and have developed deep self-awareness. And when they shed all of those society influences and start looking at themselves purely with their energy, then they realize how powerful they are, and then they can understand how are the ways that they can channel their introversion to the things that serve them and serve society.
finally, based on your knowledge of Carl Jung, which advice would you give to our listeners or viewers? Is it, based on his research, his methodology? What would you advise anyone to do? Maybe take
His
the
knowledge
test.
and his field is so wide. This is a
Yeah,
difficult question.
yeah.
um, I let me talk about emotional intelligence and self-awareness because he defines a lot of the terms that create the framework that eventually Daniel Goleman in 1984 wrote his book Emotional Intelligence. And now we realize how important emotional intelligence in moving things forward in companies and leadership and parenting and relationships and all that. One piece of advice that comes straight from the work of Carl Jung is dig deep and develop self-awareness.
Hmm.
Get to know yourself. Outside, like put outside all the conditioning, the family history, the society, the religion, everything that has served your entire life to define your identity. Just in your moment of solitude, just go to nature and think and feel yourself. Understand how what moves you, what triggers you, what pleases you. What are the things that you do effortlessly? What are the things that you wish you never had to do? Learn all these things about yourself And once you develop a deep self-awareness, everything else will follow from that, because self-awareness is the main pillar of emotional intelligence. You cannot be emotionally intelligent if you yourself do not know your triggers and the things that drive you and motivate you. So that's I think the most foundational advice I can give. And we talked about this in previous podcasts. This is the foundation of the book that I wrote, which is Become Who You Are Meant to Be, which is highly influenced by Carl Jung.
Mhm.
The concept of individuation, that's what my book is about. Like it explains how I moved from one identity to the other. And the first step after facing imposter syndrome is self-awareness. So self-awareness is the advice I would give to everyone. It's easy to find, his work on self-awareness. A lot of authors write about self-awareness in psychology, but as well in coaching and in general self-improvement. The Greeks, Plato, I think, coined the word "know thyself," and way before that, the Egyptians and the Persians, they also gave a lot of value to self-awareness, and great leaders had to be fully self-aware. So I would say that's if I were to distill all of Jung's work, it all starts from there.
That makes perfect sense. I'm going to give a similar advice. I'm going to say respect the fact that you are two halves, understand it, embrace it, and utilize it. Hatib, as usual, it's been an amazing pleasure to listen to your insights and have a chat about these things. And I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward to our next session
Thank you.
already. So I'm going to say thank you so much to you and to
Thank
our
you. Thank
listeners.
you
And
for your time, your great questions.
I'm gonna stop the recording right now, and we'll do 5 seconds without the listeners.